When my mom came to Toronto, she was like doing the whole like immigration, trying to get papers and stuff like that. And there was some issue. My dad had to go back to Malaysia, and then my mom ended up at a group home. And then I was raised in that group home, and then until like 4 years old. And then from there, went to this women's shelter. I don't see a world where you get to the finish line or you get successful or whatever it is by yourself. That's not a real thing to me. Like my brothers called me out for like not understanding if like I work hard on something or whatever. Like I'm never sort of good enough in my own eyes because here's this person who's raised me, you know, who's had such a harder life, said less about it than I have, and like just done it, you know.
Welcome back everybody to another episode of Time Capsule. Now, I know it's been a minute, but I promise this one is worth the wait, as this episode features one of the top commentators in the Counter-Strike space, Launders. Alongside running his apparel company Boxer and his incredibly popular YouTube channel, he's been in the Counter-Strike scene as an on-screen talent since 2015. And in this episode, I got to dive into so much of his backstory, including his plethora of tattoos, his upbringing in Toronto, and exactly where you should get pizza if you ever visit the city. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, so it's actually good morning. I don't think I've woken up and been active this early, this whole event. So thank you for promoting me to do that, motivating me to do that.
I've been learning, who's the guy who's super popular? It's like the jacked science guy is really popular. Something Huberman.
Oh,
do you know
fuck.
who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's been on Joe Rogan and stuff like that. But now he has like his own channel. He's a professor at some... I haven't looked any of this stuff up, you know, he could be a complete scam artist. But he talked about morning routine.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, let's see. Everyone's talked about morning routine. But he was saying that the two main tips are get sunlight in your face right away.
Okay.
Because if there were no buildings, you wake up with the sun, and then that's how your body knows that it's time to get started. Open the curtains, whatever.
Nice.
Don't just like start slow in the darkness and like wander to the bathroom.
I definitely do that.
Yeah, me too. And then the second thing is coffee. So do you know the fact about coffee, how it doesn't actually give you energy?
Yeah, Matthew was telling me this the other day. He's like, it just masks the tiredness.
Okay,
like,
yes, it's actually,
really?
yeah, so that's right. So there's a thing called adenosine that builds up when you sleep. And I'm just regurgitating, by the way. Adenosine builds up while you sleep. And when you wake up, you've got a bunch of adenosine just telling you were just tired, so it's still there. And then when you have coffee, it puts the adenosine away. But what you should do is let the adenosine naturally get removed from flushed out from your body, drinking water, doing a few things, and then drink the coffee. Otherwise, in an hour and a half, 2 hours, you'll crash because you try to put away too much adenosine like right when you woke up.
Right.
So he said, wait an hour and a half before you drink your morning coffee.
Bro, so I've done this all wrong. We're in a dark little hallway.
Drinking coffee in bed in a dark room.
Literally. Whoops. I'm going to blame you for the coffee addiction, by the way, because you're the one that was like, learn to like black coffee and then everything's fucking amazing. And it's true. It's actually true.
You know, sometimes I don't recognize my own strength, number one. Number two, when I thought you would have coffee, I was really wondering if you would like it a lot, you know? Because coffee is one of those things that's like the thing about acquired taste. I got another weird science fact. Okay. Well, it's not, I don't know if you know this. I don't want to, okay. It's acquired tastes. The only difference, the reason they're addictive is because they have some addictive thing about them, like a caffeine or whatever chemical. Mm-hmm. But the reason they taste bad and are still addictive is because originally when you drink it the first time, your body thinks it's bad for you. But then as you learn that you get the benefits and it's not bad for you, you change the way you think about the taste, but the actual taste never changes.
What?
So that's why like alcohol, coffee, and things like that.
Does it physically taste different to us?
Well,
or is our brain just sending signals and going like...
I think you just ask yourself, you know, like from the first, like, let's say you had some vodka, which everyone does that when they're like 16.
Yeah.
So does vodka still taste the same as it did back then?
No, I guess it...
I would say it like mostly does, but the way we felt about it definitely changed.
And I guess the way I would consume it and the quality of the vodka has drastically changed. I'm not in
We're
a
on Grey
field
Goose now.
in the middle of the night anymore drinking Glens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just presumed it was when you got older that your taste buds physically shifted.
It's something about like if you like know something's poisonous, you can smell it and know it's bad for you. And then we have that reaction to some things that are like addictive chemicals. But then we just like stick through it, and then we're like, this is awesome. I'm awake all the time.
Normally, I was talking to you about this last night. Normally I do like a drink with my guest and an alcoholic drink. And obviously if you don't drink alcohol, that's fine. You were kind of down. It's 10 a.m. You were like, I'm down. I'm like, no, I mean, I'll bring you coffee. What would you mix with your coffee if you were?
Like, I guess it would be Kahlua or something like that. But I in North America, like you can't drink before the sun goes down. You know what I mean? Whereas like
it's really frowned upon, or
guilty conscience, like there's so much pressure. Like it's just weird. You can't even if I have a drink outside on the street, I feel like a degenerate. Like I feel like uncomfortable.
Before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Well, that's fucking late.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, you can do one at like 5 and then you're like risque. You're like, wow, this is like, we're cool. We're doing this like right when work finished and we're getting happy hour. And they try to encourage it at bars because they want people to drink more.
Yes.
But you feel the social sort of like, you feel like you're looked down upon for drinking while the sun's out or like while it's too early.
I'd obviously just experienced Canada for the first time, and I didn't realize you have designated liquor stores. You can't walk into just a regular supermarket, or at least maybe in Toronto.
It's changing a bit now, but yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Mental, and they closed at like 4 p.m. So we're out like having a nice little hike, and it's like, oh, let's get a couple beers. Oh no, it's 5. That's it. That's
1984
crazy,
in
man.
Canada, for real.
You guys just sell fireworks like in the middle of the aisles as well. What the fuck is that about?
Yeah, it's so backwards. So you go to America, and there's like, I went into Walmart in Texas, and there's like a Lazy Susan with shotguns on it, and you could just like spin it, and it's like real shotguns, and like kids are just playing with them.
Bruh, that's so wacky.
We do have some things backwards, that's for sure.
Okay, so you're the second guest on this podcast. I did the first one with Chad, and he was somewhat familiar with the idea of time capsules. Was that a thing when you were growing up? Did you do time capsules physically?
It was something we talked about. I think like if I remember correctly, like Canada did time capsules and stuff.
Okay.
So they would have things that were buried, and it was sort of a time where they could talk about like the history of something, and then say we're going to put this away, and then like. As a kid, we probably did time capsules as well, just for fun. I feel like it was a way of practicing gratitude, you know?
Yeah.
You know, because it's just a reminder of all the things in your life that you liked, and then you put it away, which is what this podcast is about, isn't it, Freya?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is sort of physical objects, metaphorical things, abstract moments, anything. Because I did a lot of time capsules as a kid, and I remember being like really gassed to like go and dig them up one day. Mm-hmm. And obviously you move house, you move away from town, city, whatever. And I left underground, and I'm like really curious as to whether anybody ever dug them up and discovered my fucking pencil erasers and candy and shit. Like just such weird, like little Playmobil guy put in there.
A what, sorry?
Like, do you know what Playmobil is?
Playmobil? No.
It's like Lego, but less buildable.
Oh, okay.
I was obsessed.
We had like toys. Lego, and then we had Mega Blocks, which were just bigger versions.
Huh. Oh, okay, like the real chunk, like Duplo
just chunky
kind of thing. Yeah.
If you like started a little slower, you know what I mean? Which I definitely had some Mega.
Yeah, so it's kind of like building off the physical idea, which I kind of want to start off with I think the first one. What's the first one I sent you? Oh yeah, something from your childhood. If you were going to put something from your childhood in this abstract capsule, what would it be?
Oh, yeah, it's this picture of me and my mom.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I don't have that many photos with me and my mom. Just even of me when I was a kid. Like I grew up in 1990, and then like my mom wasn't like technologically savvy. We didn't have like we didn't have like a camcorder. We didn't have like anything like that.
Okay.
Which I think that was sort of 50-50 in your family if you had like started to be really about the photos and the cameras and stuff like that.
Yes.
Whereas now, like a kid born in the last 10 years or something, like their entire life is just on camera.
Yeah. Documented whether you like it or not.
By like
yeah.
10 different adults, right?
Yeah,
in their life.
yeah.
So that's one of the like only like one of like 3 photos I would say that I have on my phone with me and my mom, outside of like maybe photo albums that I know her and my dad have somewhere. So I really like this one. This one I would say probably 8 years old, something like that.
Where were you? Do you remember where it was taken?
Yeah, this is I grew up. This is actually a women's shelter.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I came to I was born in Montreal, but my mom, when we grew up, I grew up when my mom came to Toronto. She was like doing the whole like immigration, trying to get papers and stuff like that. And there was some issue. My dad had to go back to Malaysia, and then my mom ended up at a group home, and then I was raised in that group home, and then into like 4 years old, and then from there went to this women's shelter, which was fine that I was like the one guy in this women's shelter because I was a little kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when I was like 11, I had to move out, but there was like great people in there. Really liked everybody. Everybody was sort of down on their luck or different parts of their life.
Yeah.
And had different things going on. Sometimes mental health issues, sometimes other things like that. But everyone was very kind, like very good people. But I remember there was one situation where I was like 11, so I was getting a little older. Was still like prepubescent, but I was still getting older. And this woman, her name was like Lorna or something. She opened the door to her. I was walking home from school, I had my backpack on, came up to the second floor. She opened the door to her apartment, and she was in like her panties and like a bra, and she was going to the bathroom.
Fuck.
And I walked by, and she went, "Ah!" And I was like, "What's so like?"
Yeah, why is that weird?
It wasn't weird for me because I actually
Yeah.
think I'd seen that before, like people just walking around at home.
I mean,
and just,
you would have. Yeah.
to me, it felt like one of those situations, like like if you're like if someone like looked up your skirt, that would be super offensive. But you
Yeah.
might be on the beach with like a thong on. You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
just the circumstance. But when
Yeah.
you're a kid, you don't really understand what the difference is in the circumstance. So I was just like, oh, okay. And I just like went to my room, and I didn't do anything wrong. I was just walking down the hallway to my room. But then after that, like we got asked to leave, basically, the group home, because I guess I was starting to get to that age, and that was always going to happen. And I think some people end up in women's shelters because they had problems with men or something like that. So
Yeah.
that was totally fine. Then we moved to an apartment after that, but that was basically where like I had my like whole childhood from.
Wow.
Yeah, until I was 11. The group home would be like not subsidized. It'd be free, I think, for people who either in Canada misplaced somehow some kind of mental health issues, anything where they can't afford to survive, working on citizenship. And it is a giant home. I mean, I'm talking the size of like a small school, and like everybody has sort of a dorm room, and then they have a common eating area, and then it's paid for by the government, and there are certain workers that stay there, and it's the same workers, so they take care of everybody. They organize things for people to do, and it's basically, I guess, I don't know if the equivalent or if that is what a halfway house is or something like that, but it is sort of where you go in transition to something else.
Okay. Yeah.
Essentially.
And that was also just for women, like.
No, that one
That was
was
mixed.
that one was mixed. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I don't know why we ended up going to the women's shelter, but the women's shelter was essentially a home. It was a home on a residential street. If you walked by it, you wouldn't tell it was like a women's shelter or anything like that.
Wow.
I think my brother kind of made me realize that like I really put my mom on like this enormous pedestal. Like my mom didn't have a formal education. Like she had to drop out of school when she was like grade 6 or something because she had to take care of her sisters. Her mom was an orphan.
Wow.
So very, very, very poor. And then she had like 8 kids. So my mom had to like, as the firstborn, had to drop out, take care of everyone. Didn't get that education, came to Canada, and then just had to work so hard, So in that, I really just gained such a tremendous amount of respect, almost an intimidating amount of respect for my mom and like how hard she works. And I think I've always compared myself to how hard she's worked, how little she's complained, all of those things,
Yeah.
without realizing it. And so like my brothers called me out for like not understanding if like I work hard on something or whatever, like I'm never sort of good enough in my own eyes because here's this person who's raised me, you know, who's had such a harder life, said less about it than I have, and like just done it, you know. So tremendous amount of respect for her. That's not so much as a woman, that's just more as a person, you
Yeah.
know, as anybody. And as a woman, I do like I try to be with the times and everything, but you know, like there's a whole like manosphere type of thing going on right now. And when
Yeah.
I see the way they talk about women, it is really like I just can't understand what it would be like to be a kid watching that video and think that makes sense to me, or like this is funny to talk about women like this, or I
Yeah.
can't relate to being able to laugh at that. That doesn't make sense to me. It makes me really wonder like what kind of how did they grow up? You know, like did they have how could you have a mom and think about women that way?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, probably I probably even more biased towards women, if anything, because of you know growing up with my mom only, and then yeah, all these women.
And you're like still super close to your mom, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had so many conversations about like your mom sounds active as fuck. Like she's
Yeah.
got clubs, like
Yeah.
she's got all these friends. That must be kind of like reassuring, like when your parents are getting older, that like she's, you know, she's happy, she's got her own life.
Yeah.
Particularly when we travel so much.
She's still like obsessed with like the way she's like obsessed with like the news and the way she looks and like all this stuff, and but she stays very healthy and like eats really well and everything. When I grew up, she always watched. Do you watch Dr. Oz in the
I
UK?
don't think I know what that is. No.
He was just this really annoying TV doctor who got famous from having a segment on Oprah.
Okay.
Did you ever see Oprah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then he blew up and had his own show around like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. It was like Oprah and then Dr. Oz. And my mom loved that. And like Dr. Oz, just to be very frank, Dr. Oz gave advice to sort of overweight, middle-aged women in America. That was
Okay.
the big demographic, right? He was trying to solve the problem of like basically obesity in America because a lot of people in general are bigger, and like the Oprah was like the women half of America was what she represented, and Dr. Oz came through with all this tip. And I just bring that up because my mom has always been tiny. Okay, she doesn't need advice on how to lose weight. All right, but whenever she would cook or whenever she would shop, it would be like you know butter with half fat, half sodium stuff, half this, half that.
Yeah.
And I grew up like a pencil because everything was just like weight loss food, skinny people food, less fat, no fat, cutting everything off the beef, cutting everything off the chicken. And it's just like, I didn't realize for so long because she was cooking for me, but like, I definitely could have been fine with just like regular food. You know what I mean? So
I feel that as well. Like we have this thing called Benecol, which is like the lower cholesterol. It's not butter. It's not even close to butter.
is it called margarine? Have you heard of that?
Yes, yeah. It's like a margarine, but it
yeah.
lowers your cholesterol. Like it's. I think it tastes fucking great because I
Okay.
don't know any different.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
I had real butter for the first time and like, holy shit. Like my mom was totally gatekeeping this world of pleasure. Like it's amazing. But I'm so used to, like the low, like not using oil to cook.
Yeah.
That was a real big thing. So I'm like, where the fuck is everything sticking to my pan? It's like, you gotta use oil, girl.
And it's fine to use like a little oil. And it's
Yeah,
fine to use a little butter and everything.
Yeah.
It's-
It's so funny.
I look back on my childhood so fondly. Like I think I had such a great childhood overall. I think the number one thing, you know, or maybe the top two things would be like, oh, you know, your dad wasn't there. You know, that would be the number one thing. I didn't really care. I honestly didn't really care. I remember there's a couple of nights where I'd go to sleep, oh, if my dad was here, he wouldn't have yelled at me, you know, making up stories in my head about someone who I hadn't met yet. And then the other thing was like knowing how poor I was. And my mom never brought up how much money we had. So I can thank her for that as well. That's another thing I think is like incredibly like mature to do and hard to do. And she never made me feel guilty for like wanting something that I wanted. And I think because she didn't have much of a childhood herself, she went out of her way to make sure that I got, you know, what I wanted, if it was Lego on my birthday or whatever. And so I always felt fine. In terms of, you know, other memories, this woman who moved to Newfoundland, and my mom like was keeping in contact with her for a bit. I remember once we got into like, it was like me, my mom, and her had like a standoff in the kitchen about something really silly, like something food related or cleaning related. And I was like a little kid, and I like weighed in, you know, my opinion. And I was like, well, you know, maybe like she should have washed the dishes. And then actually this woman was a mediator. It was a conversation between two people. I'm here. And then, oh, fuck, what was her name? What's her name? Oh, I wish I remembered. Anyway, she was there. And I remember that she took my side in front of two adults and was like, he has a good point. And I just felt so big, you know, my little self, I just felt so big and I felt smart and I felt like really, really appreciated. And I just remember thinking, well, like adults are like pretty cool. So pretty much the entire time that I lived there, that's how I felt. Like never felt out of place, just felt like one big family, sort of. And the cool part about my house was that the backyard was connected to Dufferin Park, if anyone's in Toronto. And it's right near the 2-for-1 that I told you to visit maybe one day. And the fence behind the house had like a fence post missing. And I could go as a kid, like an 8-year-old, from my backyard through the fence post into the playground of the public park.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
So that was so OP. We had a skate rink there. We had a community center right there. They would bake hot oven pizzas for all the kids, and we'd all learn how to make pizzas.
Oh, yeah.
We'd play hockey every winter. Once in a while, like an NHL player would come and just do laps on our rink, and we just watch.
Just Canada things.
So sweet. Yeah, just Canada things. So we, I just felt like I had a jungle in the backyard. Everyone was really cool inside.
That's so cool.
I think my house was in a cool place, and I was totally immune from the thoughts that you would have as an adult. Like, I think if I were to move there as an adult, I'd be like more aware of like, oh man, how down on my luck I am. Like, this is tough. But as a kid, everyone did such a great job of just not shielding me away from everything, but just making me like understand that like you can appreciate anything almost.
Sounds like brought you and your mom closer together as well.
No doubt. I mean, I think that part is actually kind of interesting. Like, I have always had trouble being close to my mom, I think, because I don't know why. I think until I got older, again, I think it's this intimidation by how much she does, how hard she works, all that stuff. Where like when I was in high school, and then I was a really bad kid. I was a really bad kid, honestly. Like not to my mom, not even to my friends. I would say I was still a good person, I was still a guy but I was just doing bad things.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my mom's working all day. That's just this normal story, right? I guess there was something about the fact that I was always sort of living with her, that if she asked me to do something, it was a real chip on my shoulder. Like, I can't do that because, I want to do whatever I want to do. And I'm smart. And I'm like, I remember there was one day I came home, I think it was from grade 9, not grade 9, sorry, grade 4. Mr. Wolf was our home rule teacher.
What a guy.
Yeah. I actually got him fired.
Oh.
We get into that in a second. I remember learning that dinosaurs happened and that evolution is real. And I was like, Mom, I came home. I was like, Mom, we are monkeys. Like we are monkeys. We are animals like dogs. And she's like, no, we're not. She just totally like shut it down. My mom's like Roman Catholic. Again, grew up in Malaysia, didn't finish, her schooling or anything like that. And was just sort of appalled by the thought that like, we were animals, and I remember just at that moment realizing like, I'm smarter than her, like I'm getting an education that's just teaching me things that she didn't get to know. Yeah, she wasn't afforded. And that made me, I think that from there, it put me in a position where like throughout my life, I always felt like I was smarter than my mom. I was teaching her things about this new world that we live in, socially, technologically, like all of this stuff. But the entire time I was also wrestling with this idea that I still felt like she was better than me. She still was didn't make a fucking dime for the household. You know what I mean? Like she cleaned everything. She cooked all my food. She like took care of me totally, and I'd be useless without her. But I had this superiority of like, oh, I've learned so much about this, like all the future, and she needs me. But in reality, I didn't believe it. Yeah. So until the day that I actually moved out, and when I moved out, I guess I should jump to. That's when I actually started building a great relationship with my mom.
Okay.
Because I no longer felt like she had a thumb over me, even though she never did that. I just put that on myself.
I mean, that parents, right? That caregivers, their primary focus is to keep you safe.
I created an enemy out of someone who loved me, without realizing it. But up until that point, I couldn't laugh at her jokes.
Really?
Yeah, I felt uncomfortable, like sitting there, and she would say something funny, and I would try my hardest not to laugh. And I think it was, I've never done therapy, but I think it was all tied back to the fact that she took care of me and, was providing for me.
You just wanted to show like, the utmost respect to that person.
No,
do you think,
I wanted to show her that I was independent and intelligent and didn't need her.
like reassure, like you don't have to worry about me.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah,
Even
wow.
when it was an innocuous thing she asked me to do, or
Interesting.
if she taught, God forbid, she taught me how to do something. Because I felt like I was just correcting her own things that I was so smart about. Meanwhile, she's like 50 years. She's like 50 years old. She knows so much more about life than I do, but I couldn't handle that. So,
Yeah.
but as soon as I moved out, it was all fine. I could laugh at her jokes. I could like hang out with her more.
How old were you when you moved out?
I had lived with a couple of girlfriends before, but I think that the first time I moved out for real was 2016. I went to LA when I went to LA.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And lived there for like 2 years, and yeah. So I think that after that, like somehow my relationship got better. Like everything got better. I like called her more. I talked to her more, even though she lived in the same apartment as me. I talked to her more when I moved out. We hung out more after I moved out. So, highly recommend that to people.
I can come from that from a different angle of, only child. Again, I think that's another thing. Obviously, you have a brother, but
I have a foster brother.
Yes, yeah. So it's like different, and he's older. Than you. Like, how much older is he than you?
Bro is old now. He is probably okay. Let me think about this. I did Big Brothers, and when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. Some people know this program. It was basically because I would take the Go bus, which is like a long distance, like a Greyhound of some sort, with my mom to go to work. And every time I take it, I would throw up. So when she would go to work on the weekends and it was too far away, she signed me up for Big Brothers. So someone who had similar interests to me, who was a little older, in university or whatever, would take care of me on weekends. And his name was Michael. Shout out to Michael. And I would go over to his house. He was in post grad at U of T studying Shakespeare. So he's like writing his dissertation on some arcane Shakespearean concept that no one cares about. He got into Shakespeare because of women, actually. But anyways, he thought girls would like it. So he was actually really good at math, which is so he's super smart. But and so I was probably 8 years old, and then he was in post grad doing his dissertation. So probably he was like 27.
Okay, wow.
Maybe.
Damn.
So
he's almost 20 years older than you.
Yeah, almost 20 years older than me. So 50, maybe 51, 52.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a very different dynamic than having like, a sibling that's 2 years or 3 years different to you,
He was fully sort of like my dad. He was like taking care of me in a way that, absolute authority. I needed him to get around and stuff. And he was tried to just teach me about things and like be a friend, but he was well with me. Yeah.
I think that's like, I saw a Reddit post the other day, which was like, ask Reddit, how can you tell someone is an only child? And I was fucking expecting to click on it and be like, they're spoiled, they can't share, they're like so
heard when
mean.
We were younger.
Yeah. And everybody said to me whenever they've asked like, oh, do you have siblings? I'm like, no. I was like, a surprise. So no siblings. My mum was like, 35 when she had me. And they've always been like, oh, I could never tell you were an only child. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
like, what
it's supposed to be their
mean?
version of a compliment.
Yeah. But the real answers I got was the Reddit post tab was, the first one, the top one was, doesn't have any issue with like buying snacks and then leaving them. Doesn't have to eat fast at meals because you're not like scared that your sibling's just going to come and fucking eat it all. Exactly. I've never had to think about that. And I'm like, that's so fucking true. And the other one was,
that is true.
Just like comfort time alone. That was like be comfortable with being alone, which I've like kind of struggled with a little bit. Because you kind of get to pick when you're around people or when you're not around people as an only child for the most part, apart from your parents. So I feel like growing up, there was a bit more, they had more time to spend with me and they had more time to go, okay, you doing this, like how's school going, blah, blah, blah. And then like you were saying, when you transition to an adult, I think when you have a little bit more control over the time you can spend with them, actually realizing that your parents are really fucking cool people, one, is amazing. And they are actually humans with their own, characteristics, their own flaws, their own amazing qualities. and finding like things in common with them that maybe you wouldn't as a kid. I think that's been like one of my favorite things about actually becoming an adult.
Is there any kind of
finding that common
realization that you
ground.
had about your parents that you just like, you're like, why didn't I ask this when I was younger? Or like,
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty open parents. They were very both self-employed, both work from home. So they were. I got like a good idea of like the work environment from quite a young age. They would obviously work on weekends and stuff, both in creative industries. Love what they did, which was super inspiring for me because it was like, okay, I can. They're never going to judge me on this career path. Like they were only encouraging, which is amazing. How did your mum feel about like your career that you pursued?
she's supposed to be retired,
Okay.
but she still cleans because she just like is a workaholic. She's worked her whole life, and like she loves working. She loves talking to people. She loves working and going to places and stuff like that. Um, and she sorry, what was the?
Oh, how did she feel about like gaming as
Oh
a
yeah.
career
So
path?
her clients that she talks to, she still tells them, and I do IT. She really has no idea. Like I send her, our life is pretty like insane. You know what I mean? Me and you, all of
Oh
us talent,
yeah,
like we go all over the place.
but we're living the dream.
Yeah, we're living the dream. So I send her photos from like, the coolest parts of the world. Like, I sent her like a video of like the Eiffel Tower sparkling at night and like some of the craziest food you've ever seen and like all this other stuff. And she'll just react. She'll just be like, respond on WhatsApp and just say like, "Wow, cool." You know what I mean? Like just like 2 words. And I'm just like, what does she think about what I do? And I saw on her phone once that I had sent her links for when I was casting certain events and stuff like that, and she had never talked about whether or not me casting the event. But I saw once when I was helping her fix something on her phone that she had like had the browser for like Blast Premiere on one of her
Oh,
tabs, and I never asked her about it, but it's good. I'm happy that she watched. I still don't really know what she knows about gaming and commentary and stuff
it's a
like that,
different
but I've
world.
tried. Yeah, I've tried to explain it. It's so foreign. Like she's mastered the iPhone, but that's pretty much it. Like,
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's only a positive thing that I mean we're in a space where there's so many people's parents that are just like this isn't legit, discouraging from
okay,
it,
okay. I can say this for
which really
sure that
sucks.
like when I was so this is another reason my mom was like insane, like amazing because like when I think it was like 21, I guess I worked as a butcher for a couple of years at St. Lawrence Market in Toronto. Did you go there? It's like the oldest market in North America or something. But
No, I
oh, okay,
didn't.
all right. More stuff to do when you come
Hell
back.
yeah.
But I worked as a butcher there, which was it was a treacherous job. Like I would go wake up at 4 a.m. In the winter, go there on weekends while I was in school, and go there 4 a.m. Go into a meat freezer at 4 in the morning. Like it's the opposite of the Huberman way to start your morning. You know what I mean? Like goes in the dark and the cold, touching cold things, then cutting meat, like frozen fingers all day, smelled like meat, get followed home by dogs. Like it was just awful.
Jesus.
No one wanted me. You know what I mean? That was just it was hell. And I actually, for the first time in my life, after working countless jobs, I worked all these different jobs in retail. I did construction cleanup. I did telemarketing. I did like all this other different, every kind of life you could imagine. And I asked my mom for the first time ever, like, I just don't want to do this job. And my rule for myself was always don't quit a job without having something else lined up. But at that moment, I was just so like, I just hated it. And I just felt so bad about saying that because
Yeah.
my mom worked in like secondhand clothing shops her whole life and made like a fraction of what I did and whatever and had way worse hours and had to go farther. But I just asked her, I was like miserable and I was like, can I, and she was like, yeah, just quit.
Oh wow.
And I just was like so grateful and shocked and didn't never even had asked before, so didn't know how she'd react.
Yes.
But assumed she would be like disappointed and embarrassed about me, but totally wasn't. And so, you could take from that and say like, she's never judged me in that way. So when I just started playing games, starting playing Counter-Strike when I was in school, that wasn't good. I definitely like bombed out of school. But I told myself either I quit Counter-Strike or I make money doing something in Counter-Strike. And then I started my YouTube channel and then just dropped out. So, and she never judged me really. She
Wow.
like let me just stay at home, do my thing. I started flying out. I think I went to MLG Miners for the for like in 2015, and then DreamHack Austin, and
Wow.
took more trips, and she was just let me do it the whole time.
That's so sick. It's funny what you can build up in your head as somebody's reaction going to be, and then it's fucking polar opposite.
Yeah.
Definitely been there where I'm like, I'm terrified to tell my parents this. Like, this is something I really want to do, but they're not going to approve, and they're just like, like, just go for it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I think the first time I did stage hosting, because it kind of came out of the blue, and I'd never done public speaking before, never had any kind of formal training, and it really was like go up on a stage and just fucking intro the show. It's a minute, like it's really not that difficult now I look back at it, but having never done it.
It is, by the way, everyone listening.
Sorry.
It is nerve-wracking and terrifying.
Not to downplay it. It was a very different kind of stage hosting to what we have now. Like Banks is out there, OJ's out there, you know, for a couple minutes, they've got players around them. This was just like, hi, welcome to the show. We're really excited to be back. Like I'd fucking rehearsed like 3 lines in my head for weeks. I was terrified. But having been offered that by a group of people at Face It that, you know, didn't really know my background, they didn't really give a fuck. They were like, this girl just likes Counter-Strike and she can speak, so why not try this position? And then she would do interviews and stuff. And I remember like going to tell my parents and being like, they're going to be like, why the fuck would anybody offer you that? Like, this isn't you, blah, blah, blah. Which like isn't them at all. Like they would never judge me like that. But I think it was my notion of how people looked at me that I was mapping onto them, because I mean parents are pretty honest to you most of the time.
So did you do that with like other people a lot in that sense, or like
I think,
is that like negative, what is that called? There's gotta be some word for that.
I guess it's like close to like a self-fulfilling prophecy-ish, because you put an idea in your mind and you just think other people are going to think that, and then you kind of become that slowly. And that was a really good point of like just breaking free from like, I mean, I was only 21, 22 at the time. So like still relatively young. And going up to them and they were just like, no, go for it. Like if you want to try that, like literally what is the worst that can happen? Like you fuck up and then you never do it again. That's it. You move on with your life. And they're actually, you know, they're actually people. It sounds stupid to say, but have, as you were saying, have a wealth of experience that I didn't really tap into until, I don't know, until kind of recently. My dad came to Paris, first overseas event that he'd ever been to. And
I met him there.
Awesome. He absolutely loved it. And he used to do music tours, so very similar environment. And actually just being able to talk to him about that and listen to his experiences and go like, I would have never thought that you did anything like this, because like, you're my dad. Like, you're just a dad, you know? It sounds so
Your
insulting.
job is to raise me.
Exactly, And he was, you know, he could be like, not strict, but, you know, there was times where discipline came out and it was like, hey, you're clearly my dad. But now it's much more of like, it's much more of a friend. Which is, it's amazing. No, I think like, just having parents who are accepting is
I always hope that I can do sort of the same thing of like, if I ever have a kid, which I don't care, I'm like, whatever, I'll just literally flip a coin one day. But if I ever do that, like I'll be able to switch from being able to like raise the kid, but then also when they're older, like just not treat them like a kid for their whole life, which I hear is like the thing that everyone does. I'm always worried about these things that there's no reason to be worried about them. I don't have no doubts in my own personality, but like I've seen it happen to better people than me, you know, where they make mistakes in that regard. And I wonder like how many of those things I have to be worried about, like
particularly with children, because it's like, you know, it's such an,
you don't fuck their whole brain
up.
You
could just fucking ruin them with like one sentence. That's it. Game over. First thing, locked in. The picture of you and your mom. You're happy to pop that in the time capsule, lock it on in, and move on to a song. If there was a song that you were going to put in this capsule, what would it be?
It's a What's Up by A$AP Rocky. It's produced by Clams Casino. It was on the mixtape Long Live A$AP, I think, whichever one was his first sort of release. You know A$AP Rocky, of course, right?
Yeah.
So this is just like what blew him up, basically. And this one's weird. This was the reason I brought this one up because like A$AP Rocky, the celebrity, when he made this song, I think I was 21. It came out in 2001, I believe, or 2001, 2021.
2021.
No, sorry, 2001. Sorry, wait, 2011.
Yeah,
2011. That's the one in between. Holy smokes!
It's early.
10 a.m. I saw this video, and it was I realized it was the first time in my life that I ever wanted to be somebody that wasn't me.
Oh, wow.
I saw him in this video and I was like, this guy is so cool. I wish I was him. And I had never had that with any other rapper or celebrity or anybody else that I looked up to growing up. And I've always been obsessed with celebrities, or I've always been obsessed with famous people and great people.
Okay.
So like I've read like a lot of biographies and autobiographies, and I really want to know what makes somebody, like, I'm addicted to interviews, Nardwuar interviews, whatever, long podcast interviews. Like I just love finding out about how great minds work, you know? And so I just realized at the moment, like, even though I have that, I had never actually wanted to be any of the people that I looked up to before.
Okay.
But when I saw Rocky and just the way he dressed and the way he talked and the way he presented himself and the song itself, I was like, holy fuck, like, I think there's almost nothing that I would like leave behind. I would just want to be you. And that was an interesting moment for me. So that's, I like when I see K-pop stands and like, you know, like women like cutting themselves and like sending their blood to their favorite artist, and like in K-pop, it's like a really, you know, not normal thing to do, but a common thing to do. Or just like fandom to that extreme. I cannot imagine putting someone on that high of a pedestal, right? Like putting a celebrity just like who is just another person who's just famous, higher up or much higher up. I'll admit, I'll put celebrities or famous people, like, you know, if I think of a Steve Jobs, for example, like I do idolize him in some sense, like what he did and how, you know, how he thought about things. I think he's ahead of me in a few ways, and I think that's okay to think like that.
Totally.
But to say he's otherworldly, he's, you know, a deity of some sort, like that's ridiculous. Yeah. It's pointless to do that. You should never do that. But that was the first time where I was like, okay, I think he's just so much cooler than me that I'd want to be him.
So it was the music video for this specific song.
Yes, it was.
I don't think I've ever seen it. What does he do that's like?
He kind of like, the cool part about the music video is that it's like mixtape. I don't remember if this is a mixtape, but it was definitely before they were big. So it was a very budget. They had rented out like a mansion that was clearly not theirs. And then there was like a Rolls Royce outside that was not theirs. And they had like a dog that probably wasn't theirs. And they had like, but with all of the rooms, they kind of did something that looked really cool. And they had cool effects on the music video that were clearly cheaply made. But it was just him and all his friends. And I knew they just all did that together and just came up with shit. And I knew that it was just not $1 million music video. Now he's made tons of those, but I think that one was better. And maybe that was part of it too, knowing that I also have this obsession with like, I never want to make it without my friends. Like my only goal in my life is that me and my friends, I think it's pretty common with people who grow up in like single parent households that they make their friends their family. Yes. So I've always had like really, really close friends growing up, and we've, you know, shared patty subs, and every little dollar we had to buy cigarettes, we would share everything. And so now that I'm like where I'm at, even if I'm in a different job or whatever, still my goal in life is to like end up, like I have this image of myself with me and all my homies on like beach chairs at a cottage, really old and fat and like in pain, and just talking about all the cool shit we did.
Yeah.
And so I don't see a world where you get to the finish line or you get successful or whatever it is by yourself. That's not a real thing to me.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So when I saw like, and Rocky brought up his entire crew, you know, A$AP Ferg is his own huge rapper, like all these other guys that he was in the crew with, I could see it in him too, that he did that. He got famous and brought all his friends with him. So I really like that too.
Huh. Okay, that sounds like a really authentic, like obviously, you know, back then he was probably putting up a projection of what, like in that music video, it sounds like what he wanted to get to. And obviously he's got there, but like the little flares of authenticity of like having all his mates there and then like all the effects and shit in the rooms. That sounds, that's really cool. I need to watch that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's a great song too.
Does the song, that's what I was going to ask as well. Does the actual, are you a big person when you listen to song lyrics?
Like, with lyrics.
Does it resonate with you? It's
No,
not really,
at all.
it's more just about the...
Not at all. I think like, there's probably a couple songs where the lyrics matter. Like my favorite band right now is Men I Trust, and I can't even name a single. I don't know what they're saying usually. Something ethereal and just like it's just the feeling for me. It's just the feeling is so right.
Yes.
And I know what they're trying to make me feel. So for me, it's like a lot about feeling. I don't have a great memory for lyrics. I don't think about lyrics that often. I'm not really great with that level of abstraction either when it
Okay.
comes to like interpreting poetry or people. And sometimes somebody will explain a lyric to me. I'm like, holy fuck, like really? That's like amazing. But would never have figured it out myself. So for me, it's only about the feeling that I get
Mm.
from the music. And so I think that's why rap works really well for me as well. I've always appreciated how, like, some people would call it, gaudy or tacky, but I think it's nice that they go for visceral. When a rapper's
Yes.
like rapping about something, you might be like, wow, he just said lemonade 6 times in a row. Like, thanks, Gucci Mane. But you leave the song and you're happy or you feel in a good mood or whatever. It's like they don't pretend to be pretentious about it. Like, they like Lil Wayne can just hit you with like, wake up early in the morning, eat that pussy like cold pizza, and you'll just be laughing. You know what I mean? So I like that it's unpretentious in that sense, and they just have fun
Yeah.
with it. So for me, yeah, it's definitely about feeling.
Have you ever seen A$AP Rocky live?
No, I
Never
haven't.
been to a concert.
I imagine the shows would be really bad. A
Yeah.
lot of rappers are really bad when it comes to. I've seen Kendrick live, amazing.
I've seen Kendrick live
Yeah,
as well.
so
Yeah, accidentally. Yeah, I heard the eagle sound and I was
it's
like, wait.
accidentally.
I was at a festival in my hometown,
Holy
Reading,
shit, yeah.
and I had like a whole weekend ticket, and it's very much like you have to stagger yourself there, otherwise you're like burnt out. Because you start on Thursday, it goes to Monday, and he was on like Saturday headlining.
Yeah.
And somehow I just didn't really, I don't know, wasn't really reading the lineup for that day for some reason.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, but yeah, he was super vibey. Like really
what
good.
year was that roughly? Do you know?
20. Oh, I've been
Like in the
so
last 3
many
years, or
No, I
okay.
haven't been since 2019.
Okay.
Maybe it was 2019. No, that was when Post Malone was there. Post Malone was fucking amazing.
So he's already pretty famous at this point, right?
Yes.
Like so it's a pretty like big show.
I think it was maybe 2018, and it was the same year that they had Billie Eilish. But so there's like different like tents. There's like the main stage, and then there's like a BBC introducing stage, and then there's an NME tent. And Billie Eilish was meant to be in the NME tent because they announced the lineup, like 9 months prior, and she wasn't really that famous then, but fucking blew up. So they had to move her to the main stage. But the only time slot they had was at like 3 p.m. because obviously you can't move everyone around that you've already planned.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest crowd I've ever seen. It was
Oh shit.
unbelievable. Yeah, so it might have been that year that it was a little bit like, yeah, 2018 would probably make sense for him. Yeah, but he was great. Actually, he just performed around the corner from where I live now.
Oh, nice.
In London, in the big park.
Yeah, and so yeah, he's a super solid artist. Like I will say a lot of rappers and stuff are they're just not good at doing shows. Like I've been to MF Doom show, he didn't show up until midnight. I've been to like when I went to watch Kendrick, actually, Schoolboy Q, who's sort of like his right hand man, was supposed to come to Toronto, but he got banned from Canada for trying to sneak weed through the border.
My dude,
This bro tried to bring sand to a beach and sneak weed into Canada.
It's literally
like,
legal
why are
now,
you doing
what?
this? And he got banned from Canada, and then they legalized it, and he's still banned, I think, because he like broke the law at the time. And so he just didn't come to the show. And I want to see Schoolboy as much as I want to see Kendrick. Like,
oh my god,
it was just so fucking stupid. So you have like an entire road crew, and you can't find someone to find you weed in Canada.
Do you remember the first time? Like, when did you hear that song for the first time? What was going on in your life at that point?
I think I was the butcher, so that makes sense. I was 21, so I was in this university.
Okay.
I was studying philosophy at U of T. I was a butcher on the weekends, and I was also rapping back then myself.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
Huh.
So me and my friends had we have a couple of things on like Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, and we used to rap. I started rapping because my one friend Daniel is unbelievably talented, and actually a guy from another school that I grew up with, who I still keep in contact with, Rob GF. I got Henry and Machine. They listen to him all the time now. He's also really, really fucking talented, and still making music. Daniel is now doing other things, but I started rapping because I wanted Daniel to be famous. I was always very intent on becoming famous in some way.
Okay.
It was just in my DNA. I realized that looking back. I tried to start a clothing company. I tried to start rapping, and then I got into esports like right after that. So it was just always coming. But I was like, Daniel, I had this thing where I was like, I saw someone who was talented, and I couldn't stand the idea that I could see someone who was talented and let them, if it was in my power, let them not become famous. And I realized at the time I was projecting. I was like, I want to be famous.
Didn't even ask him, do you want to be famous?
No, and he didn't. And he didn't want to be famous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know what's actually funny? He does now. He wishes that he went back and did it. But that's a separate thing. He's actually doing great now with making lots of money, which is the most important part. But for myself, I started learning how to rap because I just didn't want to let my friend, who I knew was amazing, not get to the place that he could get to.
Wow.
And then I actually got pretty good at rapping because I learned from him and he was so good.
Did you rap together? Was it like
yeah,
a
we
group?
made songs
That's
together.
so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember there was this one everyone used to steal beats off of YouTube from like these poor producers who would make no money. And just like, they're not making money in the first place. They have like 2,000 views. And the worst part is that like, it's like the food chain, like the bottom feeders are like, they're probably making not the best beats, but they're the easiest to steal from because you're not going to get taken down because their shit isn't copyrighted. You know what I mean? So like everyone was just stealing from, producers that had no views and made no money. Shout out to Vaughn. Okay. So I took a beat. I made this song called Clouds. Because like Vaughn Box handles beats like a botanist, a Monday beast being honest like anonymous. I roll the little bit of weed that I smoke. Believe that I mean that I'm green when I choke. And then like all this other stuff. And I remember I stole his beat from YouTube, and I was so proud of the song that I messaged him, and I was like, "Bro, I just want to say, I took your beat, but yo, listen to this song." And he was like, "Never fucking do that again." He like reamed me out. He's like, "Fuck you! Like I should take this song down." No. I was like, "No, dude, I'm so sorry." No. And I came to ask him with this sort of like sense in my head that like he can't get mad at me because I could have just like not used it, or I could have just not told him in the first place.
Yeah.
But that's not how that works. I just did something unethical.
Better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But then after he stopped, after his anger subsided, he actually liked the song and he made me a thumbnail for the song, and it's still on my Bandcamp.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh shit. I can't believe I never knew that about you. That's fucking amazing. Do you feel like that has, I mean, this might be a reach, but commentary, rapping, is there any conversion of, skill sets or
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I I know that if I do a voiceovers at home, so maybe you can relate to this because okay, by the way, when Freya used to do the ECS voiceovers and like most of us hadn't ever seen her face, she was doing like the best voiceovers for the Faceit commercials ever. I was like, wow, she's a great speaker. And I've tried to do voiceovers before and it's very hard to, you're excellent at it. You're amazing at it. And we used to let me and DDK and James like doing ECS in the Santa Monica studio. You would come on and do like the commercials and stuff in between them. Like, wow, she's really good.
Thanks.
So long time coming. But when I would do voiceovers, it's the best vocal warm-up you could possibly have. It's like the equivalent to like writing and speaking, where you're sort of confronted with your thoughts. So you're like a better speaker after you write a little bit, after you practice the voiceover, and then you listen to it back on like Audacity. You understand where you could have been stronger and weaker, and it just warms up your voice in all those right parts.
Yes.
And when you go into a commentary, you kind of just do things one shot. But then you realize that if you warmed up doing like voiceovers, you're much better at commentary right away, because it's probably very hard to nail it on the first try because you've never done that when you've recorded a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And that might be more for me or some people more than others, but absolutely the same thing with rapping. If I would write, first of all, it would change the way I spoke for a few days after like writing a song, because it's a lot of creativity coming up with rhyme schemes, analogies, layers to, your whatever, all of the bars that you write, all of the verses that you write. It just brings your mind to a bunch of different places, and you're constantly like recording the first 4, recording the first 8, recording the first 16. And in that, practicing, getting better, training your voice, and thinking creatively. And after that, I think you're at a massive advantage when it comes to like, if I were to go do commentary right after that, or it would be the same thing as today when I record a script for a YouTube video and then cast 100%.
Is that something I've been learning a bit more about recently is breathing techniques to when, obviously I have to do quite a lot of introductory monologues, which I noticed in Paris, I was very fucking out of breath and you could hear it in my voice. So trying to learn how to, sounds really dumb, but breathe whilst you're talking, it's fucking hard. Was that something that you had to do or you became aware of, like when you were first doing rapping?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so important. I mean, you don't like it's basically 1-to-1 with that problem. Like you're recording something that's relatively short, so you see every small thing where you sounded a little off, and with a song, like it's got to be perfect. You're gonna play that song 1 million times. You know what I mean? So sipping breaths basically is the hard thing that you're talking about that you have to learn how to do while you're speaking, so that you're not taking a in the middle of your speech,
Yes. Yeah.
but you are breathing, because if you don't maintain a certain level of air in your diaphragm, then you're running on empty the whole time. You're puttering. So it's like it affects how you sound. Even if you get the sentence out, it could have sounded so much better. It could have sounded so much more in control if you just had like a little bit more breath.
Yeah.
It's not a small it's not a small skill. It's a really hard thing to do. So yeah, breathing's important.
One final question on this. What was the desire to become famous? Like, why did that appeal to you?
I don't know. I think I always thought that everybody had this, but like in school and stuff like that, like I was sort of not like I was like a counterculture Andy. Like if everyone had a JanSport bag, I would get a bag that looked like a JanSport bag that wasn't JanSport, that I argued was cooler. Or like I would never get an iPhone back in the day. And I've sort of changed. Like I just never wanted to do the exactly popular thing. And I also always believed that like one day people are going to know I'm cool. So that was sort of the shadow of myself that I always struggled with when I was younger, that I always felt like I am cool and like I want to be mysterious, and one day people are going to know. So that's definitely built out and become who I am today, I think, for sure.
That totally makes sense.
But it was very innate, and I don't remember any like original inciting incident that caused that to happen in me. It's just like the way that I can always remember feeling that I would tell myself like I'm special, like I'm going to do something cool one day. And to my credit, I actually tried to do things. Like I actually tried to do some things, even though it's sort of like the Drake, I said I was famous, or I said I was the best before I knew I was. It's essentially that. And maybe it was something of feeling like an underdog from my upbringing, that I wanted to prove it.
Yeah.
But it was always there.
You've done so many fucking cool things. Not least the clothing line, obviously, which is why I asked you as another item to put into the box, a piece of clothing. Boxer is obviously a huge part of your brand as well. So I guess you're going to put in a
Yeah, something from Boxer. There was a shirt called the Boxer Community, which is such a lame name, but it was basically the Boxer logo, and it was made up of all of my Twitch subscribers' names. So you've probably seen that kind of thing before, right?
Yeah.
The funny part about this was it was made by Teespring, and they had it made in like the Philippines or something. And somehow, even though this was an Illustrator file and it was vectorized and all the names were written in before we sent it over, every name was spelt incorrectly when we got it out in the shirt. It was the most bizarre thing.
What?
Like when you submit the vector, it's not even really text anymore, right? It's just images.
Yeah.
It's just an image, a printable image.
You can't even just run it through a spell check.
Yeah,
like,
but
it's nothing,
there was one guy named Flappadiddle, and the name was written like Flappadaddy or something. Like every name had some hilarious spelling error in it. And I remember having giving out these shirts with 200 people that all signed up to have their names on it. And I sent it over, and it was like the most hilarious. Everybody had their name spelled wrong. And I made that to celebrate the community, and didn't have a single person's name correct.
No. Oh my God, heartbreaker.
But now it's a relic. Like at the time, I was like, "What the fuck? Can I get a refund?" And now it's like, so funny.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Was that so? Boxer had already started by that point, or was that like your first? When did that come in the sort of Boxer lifespan?
Oh, that was really early. So I made Boxer because I didn't want to have Launders Gaming t-shirts. Because I thought that was lame. I have no problem with people doing that, by the way, if they don't have the energy to make a whole brand. But I always wanted Boxer to become bigger than me. That was always the plan. And I never thought that I was cool enough or even wanted to be like that to try to create Launders as the coolest thing that you could have on a t-shirt. That just seemed like a ridiculous concept to me. So I immediately, when I started streaming, made Boxer as just a profile picture, and then made a team that my friends played under, and then made the clothing brand that I'd sold clothes under. And everyone asked, "What's Boxer?" I'm like, "It's just a brand I made." And now eventually it's its own thing. But at first it was a lot of why did you make a brand that's not your name? but it was all for the future.
Yeah, I guess people look at it and go like, you already have the audience on your socials.
Yeah.
Like, why not just
Like
make it
at
a
the
few?
time,
But it's
something
different.
that said Launders probably would have sold more, but in the future, Boxer will sell more.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. And was also on the side of Joey's F1 racing car.
Yeah, that's
correct?
sweet. It was also on Reedy's real racing car in real life.
For real?
Yeah, they've
Wait,
got a photo
what?
of that.
That's so sick.
It's my friend from the UK who's a subscriber, and he was, I don't know what division or whatever he was racing in, but he has a red and white car, and he has the Boxer logo and vinyl like on the side of his car. It's fucking cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So where did the name Boxer come from? I've always been curious of this.
Oh, okay. So it's a StarCraft player named Boxer.
Okay.
Just Boxer, Boxer. He was somebody who epitomized esports to me when I was growing up. So he's a Brood War player. He's not necessarily the best player of all time, like that's Flash, Jaedong, those kinds of players, but he was this enigmatic figure from 2001 that in Korea he wore like cool racing style jackets, had a nice haircut, had insanely flashy Terran play in Brood War, was super fun to watch, very dominant for a short period of time, and just specialized in the micro of the game, tanks, picking up dropship, picking up tanks and like whatever, but not very good at like as good at the macro, which is what became the most sort of the boring way to win, but like the dominant way to win. Happens in all games, right? It's sort of like like Scream versus like Simple or something, not as well rounded, but the flashy stuff was really good. Sort of like that, except he was better than Scream. Anyways, he was a super celebrity in Korea. I mean, there was a point I think at which like the Brood War team had like ushered in the Olympic team for some sport at the Olympics because the Brood War players were so popular in Korea.
Oh wow.
They had like 24-hour, 2 stations that I believe were 24 hours of just watching StarCraft on TV.
Shit.
So they were really, really popular. And the most famous figure of all of that was Slayer's Boxer. And so he was my favorite esports person. He was like the person that I viewed as like the way that esports becomes huge. Like he just encapsulated it to me. Just loved him. So I made Boxer simply because he was my favorite StarCraft player.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I think one thing that like when I've spoken to you about Boxer as a line is the sort of, I think a lot of gaming merchandise, and I'm not saying Boxer is that, but a lot of, esports ecosystem merchandise is just all about the gaming. Whereas I look at Boxer and it's like, it's lifestyle wear, right? It's like, if you know, and you see someone and you're like, I fucking know where that's from. And if you don't, you would just observe it and go, that's a fucking sick design, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what all the sort of merch and apparel should be moving towards in esports, because I think we're over the days of like, it's just a logo on a t-shirt and
yeah.
like that's it. It just seems kind of lazy. So I really love, I don't know, the ideology behind Boxer.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think that the lifestyle angle is a very ambitious one. Like I would say there's, multiple reasons why people make clothing, for example. And like, let's say you're average Joe gaming who has 10,000 subs on YouTube and people want to start buying merch. You should 100% make it and just put average Joe gaming on the shirt. Just don't fuck it up. Just put something very simple on a black shirt and people will buy it because people want to support you. They desperately want to support you. You have more fans than you realize. And sometimes people just don't know how. Like if they were to give you $10, they get nothing back. And that money just goes into the ether and you'll never get thanks for it. You'll never know if the person really saw it and really felt something. But if you buy a t-shirt from somebody, and spend nearly the same amount of money, then you can maybe see that person with that shirt one day. You can be the guy who can take a photo of it and tweet it to them.
Yeah.
You can really feel like you're supporting them and you got something out of it and they know you got it. And I think that it's so much better to allow your fans to support you in that way than ask for money in any other form. Like whether it's subscriptions or like YouTube has like a partner program of some sort where you can, or tipping or donating. Like I think merchandise is by far the best. So I really recommend like everyone make merchandise, whether you want to go for like the full lifestyle stuff or not. Like there's like Danny Duncan, who's like this crazy prank YouTuber who I don't really like his videos, but he's a really smart guy because he made this shirt called, just says Virginity Rocks on it. And it's just such a troll. but it's so much bigger than him. It's the exact same process as me, thought process of me, where
Yeah.
I don't want to make something that's like only people who know me will buy it, right?
Yes.
But Virginity Rocks is something like everyone can relate to at some point in their life, I guess. So he sold hundreds of millions of dollars of the shirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's maybe 100 million, something absurd, some number that's so high that wouldn't be possible. No matter, he's a big YouTuber, but he might have like 4 million subs. Like he's outsold himself in a way that you can't do if you sold anything, or like even if it was like his own cool brand. It had to be even beyond that, right?
Yeah,
He sold something that you might see that's a little too edgy for Walmart, but in that same vein of like everyone can understand it, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be that ambitious, but you should always sell merchandise.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
What's been your favorite like collection to launch, like in terms of the theming? What was your favorite one?
Definitely racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do more. I think that through line of a movement, because that ties back to my roots is like the movement guy in KZ. There's like the Emperor T-shirt, which is also a reference to Boxer because he was called the Emperor Terran. That's on that the one shirt that's sort of like really got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And all of the logos and stuff that came together. I love the style of it. I love the F1 aesthetic. I love the movement aspect. And I want to actually, I was talking to Taylor about literally kind of remaking Boxer into the Boxer Movement Club and then doing more things in that direction.
Cool.
Yeah. Because
really cool.
I loved it. So
I love that shirt so much because there's so many, the Emperor one with obviously the racing stripes and stuff on it. So many Easter eggs, like on the back.
Yeah.
Like when you were saying about I don't know whether everybody knows this, but like the translations of
yes,
the washing
the
instructions.
laundry, yes.
So fucking funny.
Taylor came up with that, and it sort of just degrades into like barely making sense. And
Yeah.
in different languages. Yeah, that was cool. Taylor is a very, very talented artist, and he's actually someone who was just one of my first like 10 viewers of my stream, like in like 2015, 2014.
Wow.
Very early on, saw me in matchmaking, sort of charming guy, and was like, okay. And then he started hanging on my stream. And then one day on my stream, I was like, I kind of want to do interviews. And then he's like, okay, I'll come pick you up and we'll go do interviews. And I'd never met him, but he had this way of speaking to you that there was no like worry, It was like, wow, this is just like a chill guy who's just down to do it. And that's exactly who I am too. So let's do it. So he drove up from like Vermont to Toronto, picked me up, came to my apartment, met my mom in like 2015, and then we drove to Montreal, and then went to ESWC 2015, and we did our interviews.
Wow.
And that was that was just him being a cameraman to come to do interviews with me.
Wow.
And that's where I did that Tempest interview where he said like we were all on Adderall, and like that thing ended up in the New York Times. That was crazy. So it all started with Taylor just saying like,
that moment is all thanks to Taylor.
Yeah. And now
he's
he's the guy who designs everything that Boxer does.
So did you know that he was doing design stuff, or was he even doing it then?
No, I mean he's always been an artist, but I mean he has like a business degree. He's like not done anything in school related to his creative side.
Yeah.
And yet he is 100% a creative.
Wow.
Going to his house is like there's so much cool shit everywhere. And he was always made to do this, but he never even, when we started designing, I made the logo myself. We had a couple of other artists that we worked with to collaborate with. Taylor hadn't even designed anything until like a few releases in. And then we're like, dude, why aren't you doing this more? Like, you're amazing. Like, you're really good. And then we also have Davey Superfly, who does my thumbnails on YouTube. And he's actually very good at logo creation, which is an incredible skill, honestly, to make something out of nothing. And he has sort of taken Taylor's designs and then polishes them really well. Or he made some of the logos, like the club flag for the Movement Club shirt. So now it's sort of a collaborative effort between them.
And that like is a real, testament to your own goal of having your friends lift it up with you, right?
Yeah,
like that's kind of a beautiful full circle of like that's what you want to achieve, and now you've done that with not even just the esports side of things, like with the clothing stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't feel like I've done anything like that, but I think like it's the right direction. But yeah, I mean, I don't know really how to define it. I think like until all my friends have $1 million, I think that's when literally like that's sort of, it's a money goal in my head.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't know if that's a healthy thing or a good thing or what. But
I think it's good to be able to quantify
Yeah.
something. I think that's something that we all kind of struggle with is, I mean, even when you're accepting events, right? It's like, when are you going to be satisfied with how much you've done in a year? And I really struggle to quantify anything. So I don't think it's a negative thing to look at money and go like, okay,
so when you
this
quantify
is...
like in terms of how many, like what, like you did the Paris major, for example,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like, so what was that enough?
I don't think it'll ever be enough.
Oh, really?
I think that's where I'm
What if
like,
your
oh God,
calendar
I
was like
kind of...
200 days a year?
Yeah.
Which is already a lot.
I mean,
but-
we struggle, I struggle a little bit because, or I struggle to be happy with the quantity because I fucking love what I do. So if I was doing this 365 days a year, obviously I'd be exhausted, but I would still love it, you know? So it's not like, yeah, I think just putting a number on something and going, okay, I am happy when I've achieved X.
Yeah.
I think I've set those, and then I'm like, yeah, but I could do a little bit more, or I could add this on top, or I could do blah, blah, blah.
Do you have like the workaholic sort of gene in you though?
I think maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Are you worried about it at all, or?
Yeah. I think for the long term, I don't know. Like, I would love to have kids and stuff, but having children and doing esports is I mean, we had this conversation the other day in the green room. Like, there's a lot of things you have to give up to be able to have a child, and can I still have a career with that?
In the modern world, that's like very work centric. It's a little
exactly. Yeah. So I think I've never looked to. I don't think money doesn't make me happy, but that's a real fucking luxury to say because I have a very stable life thanks to my job, which I get paid really well for.
Yeah.
So it gives you that security. But I'm never looking at an event and going, oh, I'm going to earn this much money from it. It's more like, what am I going to be doing during the event, and how can I learn more? How can I like elevate my game during this? But that has led down a path of just going, okay, I'm going to do this event back to back to back to back to back. And am I going to be any happier at the end of it, or am I going to be any more closer to this abstract goal? Because I don't really have a...
Well, I know what your shadow is.
goal.
This thought that like no one would believe that you could be a presenter.
Yeah.
And then now you are.
Yeah.
Right. So then like, what now? I guess. Like, is it still proving that you can be a presenter?
I think
because
probably
now,
a little bit.
But you've done like, major final. You've done like the full calendar of CS:GO. It's the biggest esport right now. Like you've done, top of the game. Have you ever gone back to think about how much you've done, or do you just sort of just always obsess about what's next?
Yeah, I think
because this is the gratitude podcast, Freya.
Yeah,
the whole point of this. Because my host doesn't even practice gratitude.
Fuck. No, it's true. It's actually fucking true. I think because we're in such a fast paced environment, and you can go 2 events and 2 events back, doesn't fucking matter anymore. The actual context of it, I think we're guilty of putting this on teams and players. I'm trying to think of a good example. Heroic winning in Copenhagen last year, then they move on to World Finals and they don't win, then they moved on to Katowice and they don't win, and we fucking forgot about the Copenhagen win, which is, in their minds, probably the biggest win of ever, probably coming alongside close to a major as well, just because of the context of where they are. So I think we're in that kind of system of what's next, how are we going to get better, how's it going to get bigger, how's it going to be more?
Yeah.
That sometimes I think it is hard to take a step back and just go, actually, that was great.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is why I think, over the player break, I think that was a good moment to take a step back and go, like, first half of this year has been so whack, but still got to do the major, still went to Rio again, like, did a new version of EPL, and being able to just, look at that and go, like, actually, that was a lot. Like, it was very busy, and it is very intense.
Is really important.
Yeah, having that time to reflect. But that's where you saying about, like, I don't know whether looking at money is healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's unhealthy because it gives you a goal to work towards. And I think I asked you this maybe like a year ago. I think it's when we were in Lisbon. I was like, what is, like everybody asks, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like doing this.
Yeah.
But I don't have like an end thing that I'm like...
I think it's definitely overrated to think too far into the future.
Yeah.
I think people are always taught like you should have these like goals. I think like 1 year, 2 years is good, but shit moves too fast to...
Right.
Like if we think about how we got into esports and we think about every year, our lives have moved so much more rapidly than any traditional job that like 5 years sounds ridiculous to all of us. Like, we don't even have 5 years of job security. So, like, how can you think that far ahead? uh, but yeah, I mean, my insecurity for sure is like needing to, I guess, growing up poor. I think it's like the most common one to like, people to know that I'm successful or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never been too showy. I mean, I did just get a solid gold watch, but outside of that, I don't really like. I don't have a car. I don't really like. I spend money on like food and like hanging out with my friends, but like I wear my own clothes. I don't like. I don't wear designer brand stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
I've never really had that problem when I was younger. Just black t-shirts. Like, I was all about shape instead of like. I always like properly looked at that stuff as tacky, to be honest. Like when it was all over logos on whatever.
Yeah, on like a terrible, like
yeah.
not fitted tee at all. Like,
But
just drowned your
I
body.
still have had that same kind of insecurity where it's like I need people to know that I'm like making it or that I'm doing really well or like that I'm like sort of always bragging in some way, where I catch myself doing that.
Really?
And I think
I've
that,
never noticed you do that. I feel like you're one of the most humble people in esports.
well, thank you. I think that, I guess I want to be, but I've always had a problem with, I don't know, I'd like your opinion on this. I think that with other people, like, I talk to someone like Fallen, and like I truly believe that this man has never had a sinister thought in his life. You know what I mean? When I talk to him, I'm like, this guy is just pure. He's humble. He really is humble. He's the godfather of Brazilian Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
He probably knows that, but he also at the same time never ever shows another face. Two-faced Toledo. Like, you never see it. Like, he's just so truly humble, I feel like, in the most, as close as you can be at least. And some people can't be that way. Like Mango, excuse me. You've got like Mango from Melee, and he's this very like showy, almost obnoxious, winning, loves the crowd. When the crowd's on his side, he plays even better. Like, it just absorbs that energy type of player. And he is looked at as arrogant and everything like that. But it's who he is, and he's loved because he's who he is.
Yes.
He doesn't pretend to be humble. And I think if the moment that Fallen pretended to be egotistical, that would sound wrong or weird. So I really have trouble believing that people can choose to be humble.
Okay.
And I always think it shows when someone's not very humble and they try to be. Personally, I don't know what you think.
I'm just trying to think of examples. I mean, you said Fallen, fucking Zaiwu comes to my head.
Yeah, Zaiwu.
Immediately, like the winners.
You couldn't beat it out of him, right?
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, he posted like crazy numbers. We're given the MVP trophy on the desk, and he's like.
And why I say I'm not humble is because if I was Zaiwu, I would not be like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't be an asshole. I would still be me.
Yeah.
But,
see, I would look at you just because of the way you've talked about friends. And what he said was, I need to give it to my teammates. Like, they're the ones giving me the energy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, kid, just fucking accept this. Like, how can you be so beyond humble? Like, it's absolutely insane. But I think whenever I've heard about your successes, and even talking about it here, you always bring your friends into the mix too. So I think that's the sort of maybe natural humbleness that you
I can accept that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's, I think I definitely, at least I would say when I think about life, like I do believe that life is for other people, or like when I live, my life is nothing without the other people in my life. I do have that true core belief.
Yeah.
And it's so core that I can't imagine how anyone could think otherwise. Like, if you were the only person in the world, what would anything matter? What would anything matter? And so I've just sort of accepted that as like, well, clearly everyone else is very important to me, like almost more important than my own life, because I would not want to be here without everyone else. So
yeah,
I guess that's the one thing that I could, that's probably true.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was Zaiwu, it'd be like, I would take the trophy and I'd be like, I'm the fucking man. Like, I would say something like that for sure. So.
Yeah, this is my time. Yeah, you'd be more like Apex on the stage. Like, oh, y'all said I couldn't do it again. Fuck you. Yeah. What a guy. Yeah. Okay, so item number 4, or thing number 4, that we're going to put into this time capsule. Something that reminds you of someone important to you. What's that?
Yeah. I had... Well, something that reminds me was just this. I have just like a tattoo, which is just my brother's name.
Okay.
Yeah. So can't rip it off my skin, but it's basically, my brother's last name is Sanger. and it was written in mirror letters, which I thought was so cool. Like if I look in a mirror, it's like it's legible. You know what I mean? So it's just backwards. But I got that when I was like 16 or something like that. I didn't tell my brother for like a few years. And it's just, he was just such an important person in my life for sure that just such a big figure in my life. Like every summer I would go down to visit him. I think until COVID, I visited him every single year for the last like 12 years to even after like he moved to Texas to go teach. And Big Brother is no longer a thing for us. Like I just keep in touch, and I've gone down to just like visit him. And now his son is also a Big Brother, which is fucking crazy. His son
Wow.
is he was at the Paris Major for a bit. I don't know if you got to see him. He just for like 10 minutes. He was studying in Copenhagen actually for a bit, and then he came down to Paris for the major and got him into the event, and we just like watched it a bit together. But like I've known my brother since before he was born. Every year that he has been a child, like I knew him, and now he's like taller than me, and he's now he's like 19 or 20, and he's already doing Big Brothers. So he's got like a little brother in Texas that he's
Wow.
helping to take care of. It's pretty insane.
So what was he studying here?
He was studying neuroscience.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
my brother's
Smart
really,
family.
really, really intelligent, and like his kids are also insanely smart too. And my brother got into like Berkeley for math, and then ended up with a degree in or what would be like the bachelor's degree for like just like English, I guess, and
Yeah,
then
the English lit.
specialized in Shakespeare,
Yeah.
and then did his postgrad at UFT.
Wow.
And yeah, every summer I would go down to visit him and stay there for like 2 weeks, and I would just come back like an enlightened person. Like I would come back and tell my friends like I know how to live life, like I know everything. Like he got me to like rethink about how much I was smoking weed, or like they even had a conversation with me about how much philosophy I was trying to learn because it was um, making me too I was losing my grounding basically because I was starting to think too much about like existentialism, and it was starting to pull me away from my real life responsibilities, and I realized that I was coping with that kind of thing, and that's the sort of conversation I could never have with my mom, you know. So to have him in my life to be like to like reground me or like remind me that like, you know, certain questions are important but maybe not worth asking right now, or like there are certain more important things in your life to think about. Like it made
Yeah.
me cry multiple times just having these serious conversations with me that without him I would have never been checked on. You know, no one would have ever challenged me on that. Like I think I was relatively smart compared to my friends when I was younger, and so I just sort of I could get a little out of control with what I believed was the truth. You know, like 100% like this is the way you live life. And my brother was the one guy who could always just like make me feel small again in a really important way.
Huh. That's really cool.
Yeah, he was a good person to find. We and Big Brother is an amazing program, by the way. Like, if anybody has a chance to become a Big Brother, I actually signed up as well, but I was already traveling a lot, and the first thing they told me was like, if you have to leave for like a couple times in a year, don't do this program because literally the point is that these kids are missing somebody in their life that's there all the time.
Yeah, they
You
need
know?
stability. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was in university, I did something where I volunteered. We would go to, this is a cool program. We went to an apartment building where mothers would come home late and they couldn't let their kids into their house. And we would help their kids come from school and just help them with their homework until their parents came
Oh,
to like
wow.
bring them home. So like, I loved that, but that was the closest thing that I got to do to like a Big Brothers kind of program.
That's still like amazing because I don't think it's until you're an adult you kind of reflect upon the people that weren't, you know, parents or like blood relatives necessarily, who took the time to give you that time, spared their own free time to give you a semblance of stability or just somebody to rely on.
Yeah.
That there's always going to be there, and that consistency of it is that's really cool. He sounds like a really
Yeah, he's a
really
great
awesome
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing person. He has an infinite capacity for love, and he can take care of anybody. If you put a school in his house, he would do it. There's a part where I was really bad as a teenager, and he was like, "You can come live with me for like a year if you wanted to." I didn't do it, but like I knew that I was like, "Wow, he has two kids. He had enough problems in his life. He was like a professor, but like not making nearly as much money as you should for a professor, even at a private university. There's so many politics, and like, so sad, by the way, that you can have that level of education, work at a private university, and still make like a fraction of what people do in like our industry, like in entertainment, for example. It's really sad, but much better now. But yeah, no matter how much he had on his plate, was always willing to add more.
How did your relationship then change from, obviously, you've known him for quite a number of years and gone from being a teenager, young adult, fully fledged adult now. How do you feel like that relationship has kind of adapted over those years?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely talks to me different now, I would say. Like, we talk more on the level of ideas now, whereas before it would always be me asking him questions about life and him basically having an answer all the time. And now it's sort of like I got to that sort of juncture where I had with my mom, where like, not that I'm smarter than him, but where I kind of explained to my mom that like we're all animals or whatever. I had that sort of, I've had a couple of moments now where I can tell him about things in my life where I actually feel like I might not have that knowledge. Like, he's the smartest guy ever, but like I can finally sort of teach him something about life, and we can just talk about ideas and sort of go more like lock horns on what things mean really. And he respects my opinion more in that way. And that's like really nice. I've never wanted that or needed that from him at all. I always love the fact that he just could basically dominate a conversation with me and just be like, no, like, this is where you need to be looking. This is where you need to be thinking. But things have changed in the way that I just feel like he's more of just a friend more than a big brother now. And that's really special to me for sure.
When did you get the tattoo? Do you remember what year?
I was, it was 2006, I guess.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like early in high school, and I think I got into a fight with my friend, and I was just like kind of mad, and I was like, it's my brother, like, my brother would know what to do in this situation or whatever, and I just got the tattoo, so I was like, realized how important he was.
Was that your first tattoo?
No. My first one was on the other my other collarbone. So that one was on my like one collarbone. It says Sanger, and on the other collarbone it says Philosophia, which just means the love of language and knowledge, or love of wisdom and language, something like that. And it's just Latin for philosophy, basically. And always loved philosophy. I just like always thought that if everyone knew a little bit more philosophy, everyone would be so much happier.
Yeah.
Just obsessed with the concept that like the foundation of knowledge is philosophy. Like, all the sciences, all the classes, from the calculus to the social sciences, at one point were just philosophy, and then they became their own subjects when they built their own systems of rules. And now people always look at philosophy as like, oh, these really strange existential questions about life that can never be answered, and the only reason they are those questions is because they are the remaining questions.
Yes.
All the other subjects are now their own subjects.
That's a really...
So now it's just the hard stuff, the sediment to the bottom is what we call philosophy, but there's still the rules for logic, reason, some important questions about what life means, some things that you don't need answers to actually benefit from understanding.
Exactly. Not everything has to have like the period at the end.
Absolutely.
Some things can be open.
And people are, a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. And,
yeah.
But, I really think that people would be happier if they just had a little bit of philosophy in their life. I think you'd be a better friend, a better family member, I think when they say philosophers seldom disagree, that's very true. And you would, you see the way people argue with each other online. It's like they never learned logical fallacies at all. They just jump into everything, red herrings, like, and even smart people do it, and they realize they do it because it works. But if everybody just had a baseline of like what was okay to say, like, why don't waste time being circular or disingenuous or anything like that. And I think if we all had like a better foundation with philosophy, we'd have a much better world. That's how I feel.
I've been reading a lot about Stoicism lately.
Oh, yeah.
I went to, Paris, the Shakespeare bookshop. It's like by Notre Dame, I think.
Okay.
Hella old bookshop. Beautiful. Has
okay.
like a upstairs where you can just sit and read, like you can bring your books, whatever. Yeah, and I think Stoicism is something that I've been kind of exposed to in the past few months.
The Marcus Aurelius.
Yes, yeah. Because my grandma is incredibly stoic. I think it comes from, she was 10 when World War II started. She's 94 now, incredibly independent. But learning a lot from her on how to kind of deal with traumatic things happening, and also the fact that you can't fucking control everything.
Yeah.
That's all right. Like, kind of was, I wouldn't say I was a control freak, but was made much more aware now of like, I actually can't keep everybody and everything safe all the time. Like sometimes shit's gonna happen. But her kind of, she is a philosopher in her own right, but sort of looking at it and going, okay, Stoicism is something that I should be a bit more aware of, and it is a good way to just deal with a lot of issues that will confront you.
It was did you watch Dune?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I don't have a fucking TV, and I don't want to watch it on a laptop because
you're right.
it seems too...
Better to not.
Yeah.
But there's this very famous sort of like poem in there. It's just like, fear is the mind killer, and it's about watching fear pass through you. And it's just what you learn in meditation is like, you observe fear as like this ball, you let it pass through you, and when you're really anxious, you let it become you. But what you're supposed to do is just watch it go, and you can do that. And once you realize that you can let it pass and you don't try to control it, you don't try to like figure it out and stop it, you just let it pass. It has exactly as little power as you were looking for when you tried to grab it and like spend all your time and attention and energy observing every detail and like trying to be in control of it. And Stoicism is kind of the exact same thing, just being there, observing, watching, listening, but not like being worried about, not being fearful of, not being owned by.
Yeah.
So I think that's really great. My personal armor is like the Nietzsche armor of like, he encouraged you to invite as much pain as you can into your life. Nobody is in control of anything. The famous line that he wrote in one of his like personal writings was that, we're beasts on a rock floating through space, spinning through infinity. And, the monicum of time that humans exist in the universe is, well, it's just so small that just, in like a couple of years or a couple of years in universe time, we will never be remembered. Yeah. And that's a freeing thought, that we try to control things, but it's a ridiculous, we're going 1,000 miles an hour on a rock in the middle of space, don't know how any of this works, can die in a million different ways. And it's almost like ridiculous when you think about that to say like, well, why was I ever trying to control anything? And so he says, try to just enjoy everything. There are your personal truth is the truth of the universe. People have two different views of the universe. There is no one right one. He's the guy that said God is dead, and said when his statement there was saying that God was real. He's saying God is real. That's how God died. But even though God isn't real to him, God is dead because people are starting to become more atheistic from the 1800s to the 1900s. And he said, God is dead means that since he's dead, people will start to become more nihilistic, and people will start. He sort of predicted how the world would end up to today's world, where people are mostly atheists. And I just like that he sort of says, live as hard as you can. Like do as much as you can, put yourself out there, and don't be afraid of anything, and invite all the pain, and just understand that that's a part of life. Yeah. And you should look for it. And he always talked up the amount of stuff you learn from your pain, and how a life without pain isn't worth living. So sort of a different version of Stoicism in the sense.
I should totally, learn more about that. No, I think that's very apt. Going back to your tattoo of your brother, what did he think when you got it? Did you tell him?
I did. I showed it to him. I think it was one of the situations where he didn't know how to react. I was like at his house, and I was like, yeah, I got this tattoo. He's like, wow, that's really cool. And I think thinking back, I don't know what reaction I expected, Like if it was someone showed that to me, I would be very flattered. Yeah. But I also wouldn't be like, wow, you love me so much. What would you even say? So pretty much the reaction you'd expect.
I also asked for an esports moment to be put into your time capsule.
Yeah, that was another tattoo.
Yeah, actually. That is another tattoo. So which one?
That was this. This one is from Dark Souls, and it's a boss from Dark Souls 3. And the reason I actually got this tattoo is Dark Souls is my favorite game, but I didn't get it for this reason. It was because when I went to ESWC 2015 to do those interviews, and then Tempest said we're all on Adderall, that interview blew up so much. I did like a HuffPost Live. It was in the New York Times on my birthday in print. I remember Stunna gave me the paper and he was like, check this out, man. And I was like, what? And it was a photo of me. Didn't even ask me, by the way. put me in print in the New York Times. They didn't even ask me.
What?
And all this stuff. And one of the things was I did this like 2-page spread for Game Informer, the gaming magazine. And I did an interview about it. And then they said it would come out in a few months. And I remember going to like a GameStop with my friends in real life. And I wasn't famous yet. I wasn't anybody really. Still very early, like 2015. And I remember like looking at a Game Informer issue on the stand, and it had like the Soul of Cinder, which is my tattoo, on the front cover. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, wait, I think it might be in that. It was like a few months later, so I had forgotten. And then I went and grabbed it and I opened it, and like my face is in there, you know, and I'm with my real life friends.
What?
And so it was my first surreal moment as somebody who was just online, and my friends would always be like, what are you doing? Like, when are you going to come out? Like, I was just playing Counter-Strike all day. I wasn't hanging out with anybody anymore. And they just saw me, you know, in a real magazine. And the GameStop employee was like, is that you, man? I was like, yeah, that's me. And so that was my first, like, I feel big moment where it was silly. Like, it's not even the interview. It wasn't even about me necessarily, but it was a very cool thing to be like, I've transcended our old life in some way. Like,
yeah. No, it's like the cementing of like, okay, this is a building block to where I want to be going.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's really cool. Do you have, I know that one of my friends back in London, Joe, he has an artist that he always goes to for tattoos. Do you have that same thing, or are you about kind of, you know, finding different people?
A few different people. One of my friends did most of my tattoos. His name's Lopsang in Toronto. Lop10 Tattoo on Instagram. He's just a junior. He's a junior right now, tattoo artist. But when we grew up, I've known him since we were like 15, 16 years old, and we used to like cut all of our friends' hair, like me and him, basically. And he was always very good artist, like drawing, everything like that. And right now, he's actually my barber and my tattoo artist in Toronto.
No way.
He has like works at a barber shop, like, and he's a colorist as well.
Oh, wow.
He was also a nail tech for a while, and now he started doing tattoos.
What?
And so he did tattoos for like 2 years. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just come do it with you. It's like so much cooler, your friend doing your tattoos, even if they haven't done like years and years. So basically it's him just doing most of them. And then people in his shop that I now know. And this tattoo was just from someone else in Toronto that I found earlier, but I don't really care who does them.
Yeah. How long did that take to do? Because that is like fucking intricate.
Yeah, that was like 8 hours, I think.
Damn.
It was a long time. It was a lot of shading and stuff. And I'm okay with tattoo pain. I don't really.
Yeah, I don't have any.
Yeah.
I'm not against them at all. I just don't have anything that I'm like, I change my mind too much. So I'm kind of scared of putting something on my body and then being like,
Yeah. Don't do that then.
Yeah.
I'm very like impulsive and I don't really care. And I think a lot of people who do get a lot of tattoos, they realize that like you start off trying to make sure it has the most meaning possible. You know, like this had just full backstory, meaning, everything. And then you get it. And then you realize like, it's just a tattoo. And then the more tattoos you get, you actually like getting them for almost no reason than you do trying to load them up with like a bunch of like deep meaning and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, so which one on your body has like literally the least meaning? What was like the most spontaneous?
Definitely this knife on my finger where I was like,
oh really?
Yeah, can you just do this knife?
Oh, I always presumed that was like maybe something to do with CS knives or.
It's a Dark Souls knife. It's a Rediva, I think it's called. Reduva from Elden Ring.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like the snake was supposed to be like this. You had the ring.
Ring.
Your ring is the reason I got this tattoo,
No
actually,
way.
because in Dark Souls there's the covetous snake ring, which is like something like this. And then I saw you got that ring, and then I just literally went to Lopsang and I was like, "Yo, I want to do this."
That's so
tattoo.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a sad end to that ring.
Why?
Well, I don't know why. My hands are like the first place that I gain and lose weight.
Okay.
So lost a bit of weight at the beginning of this year, so none of my fucking rings fit. So I went to the fucking bathroom.
Oh no.
I fell down the
Classic.
toilet. It fell down the fucking toilet.
Oh my
but,
God.
Like after I peed.
So you flushed and then.
And I didn't realize.
You didn't know. Wow.
And then I got out and I was like, "Are you fucking serious?" Yeah. So the snake's somewhere.
God damn.
I need to find another version of it because I loved that so much, and I had like the matching bracelet and everything.
Flushed
to
the
it.
inspiration for my tattoo. Yeah.
I know. I need to find
crazy.
it again. It was I actually got it in Denmark. Maybe tomorrow morning I'll go out and see if it still
I got
exists.
this ring in Denmark too.
Jewelry here is
Sick.
so sick.
Yeah, it's so true.
The gold here is like
I
It
get
doesn't
mad at how many
tarnish.
good things are here.
Yeah, right. It's so fucking expensive,
Yeah.
but like I get it because everything's sick.
Yeah,
like,
it's worth it. Yeah.
I would pay the 90% tax or whatever it is.
Mm.
Yeah, I love the idea of getting a tattoo, but maybe I should. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should do it. I'm not sure what direction I would even go in because
I
I
don't
like
think you'll
the
ever
fact
regret
that,
not getting one. But
yeah, exactly.
maybe just get one small that's like you don't look at it very often.
I
You
don't
know?
even have a fucking piercing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even have my ears pierced.
You've never done that?
My mom would never let me do it until
Honestly,
I
I
was
feel like some people would just
16,
tell you just like
and-
one last thing to think about. Like
Exactly.
you don't have to take care of it, don't have to look for new ones, and spend money
and
on
I'm
it.
not. I wear a headset so much that you don't fucking see my ears anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I can wear nice earrings because.
Yeah, Connor said that he got his ears pierced because I started getting all these tattoos and he just wanted to do something because he was just like feeling boring. And it was just like, and I just wear headphones all day. I could see them.
It's so true. So I don't really have any idea of like the pain that's
Yeah.
associated with it. Is there like a particularly painful place on your body you can get it done, or is it all kind of
Yeah. There's lots of places that are like I have like a sword on my ribs that fucking hurt. That fucking hurt for sure. Because I'm ticklish. So that also didn't help. I thought if it was painful, I wouldn't laugh. So like when you get it on your ribs, you have to like raise your elbow like far over your head. You kind of have to stretch the skin out wherever they do it just to make it easier.
Right.
And you know, when you're like ticklish, you want to kind of protect yourself. So it was just so uncomfortable
I'm
where I had
so
to stand like
ticklish
this the
there.
whole time.
I couldn't even
And
imagine.
it was like painful and I was laughing.
No.
And that was not fun. Ribs very, very much hurt a lot. And I think everyone's a little different, but they say bony and fatty are basically the two places. And then anything that's just little, just like general muscle tone is usually okay. Like that's why everyone gets like shoulder tattoos and stuff because it's like the least painful. Ribs,
Interesting.
hands, fingers, and just like wherever there's bone and stuff like that, that's where it hurts. But it's mental. I mean, it is the way you interpret pain in your mind, I think, because I don't have to take any breaks when I do tattoos. Some people have to take breaks, and I always wonder, like, why would you get a tattoo if it's really hurting that bad? Because for me, it doesn't hurt because I know that it's not killing me. Like if I touch a hot stove, I have to let go. But when I get a tattoo, I know it's intended pain. So I know I'm not dying. I know I'm not going to be sick. I know I'm not
There's
going
no
to hurt.
danger here. It's
So my head,
Yeah.
I feel the pain, but it doesn't hurt.
Have you ever broken a bone?
Actually, no.
Me neither. I wonder what that would feel like.
I always imagine it would be horrifying, like
Yeah.
really fucking painful. I can't even imagine. I don't know why. I've definitely put myself in danger a
Feel my
lot, but I haven't.
bones. So, like, what should they feel like? You know?
That's
Like,
true.
what's-
That's true. They don't actually have like nerve endings in themselves, I guess. But
Yeah.
they touch your nerves.
But I can imagine you would feel when it's broken. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like it. So what does that even? I don't want to know.
Yeah, there's definitely weird stuff about pain. Like, you ever heard that story about the trucker had his arm out, got it like taken off by another truck, but it was so swift that he didn't realize for a while,
No.
and then like didn't feel anything. And so it was like a case study in pain
Bruh.
that's like you have to acknowledge the sight of pain, otherwise there's no
There's no actual recognition
yeah,
of it.
or like people who have a foot amputated, they can feel pain in their amputated foot.
We're nearing lunchtime,
Yeah.
which perfectly segues us into the final item that you're going to put in this box. An item of food, something you've made, an experience you've had, something somebody else has made for you. And I love that it's this because we had a conversation when I was in Toronto and you were like, fucking go there. And your girlfriend was like, what?
Yeah,
Why are you telling me
I
to go
brought her
there?
there and she loved it. So
Okay.
I don't know why that was her reaction, but it's the best pizza in Toronto. So first of all, Toronto, great pizza. You can look at it, the shape of it, the cheese, the pepperonis, the flatness, the size. It's East Coast good pizza. We have great pizza in Toronto. Probably tons of influence from New York just by proximity being so close, whatever. We're not like LA or Chicago or whatever. We have good pizza. All right. So 2-for-1 pizza. I grew up on that street, right by Dufferin Park, and then would go to 2-for-1 pizza. You get a slice and a pop for like $2.50, $3.25.
That's so
now it's like
good.
$4.50 or something. Insanely cheap. Canadian, by the way, so like even cheaper than you would think wherever you live. And this pizza is historic. I mean, you can go 2-for-1 exists as a massive chain that like is franchised to like anybody and their uncle, whoever wants to buy it. But all of the 2-for-1s make pizza differently. but this one in specific has had a lineage of, I don't know, a couple of families that have been there making pizza since I was 6 years old till today. There's still a couple of guys that still work in that shop making pizza the same way.
Wow.
And a few guys are different, but they taught them how to make the pizza exactly right. They make the best pizza in Toronto. It's better than Blondie's, better than FBI Pizza, better than Batondo's. That's the one everyone tells you is like, but those are the ones from the lists. Those are like the, you know, ones from Eater or the one from like some blogger.
Yeah.
But they don't know
yeah.
about this 2-for-1 chain. And I've always been proud of the fact that this is the one place I know in Toronto that I know about, that as a local, this is the spot you go to. Because everyone's got them in their cities. But we're all very confident that we find the best food because we have like food bloggers online. But we are missing those golden spots, and that's the golden spot for me. And it's the spot I grew up eating pizza my whole life. So 2-for-1 at Dovercourt and Bloor. I would check it out. Excellent pizza. Get the hot sauce. We do Hawaiian pizzas there. Pepperoni, pineapple, and not ham. So that's what Hawaiian pizza was.
Wait, so Hawaiian is pepperoni and pineapple to you?
Normally it's ham pineapple.
Yeah. But they do it pepperoni.
They do it pepperoni.
That
pineapple.
sounds even better.
Yeah, so I just like it like that. And they always have underneath the heat lamp pepperoni, vegetarian, and Hawaiian are like the 3 pizzas that you can get there. And you can order anything, but yeah.
It's always, is this like thin crust pizza we're talking, or is it
Yes.
like thick? Thin crust is so goated.
Yeah, it's thin. Thin is just great for like a lot of fast food cooking options, like smash patties, for example. It's like you have more surface area of char and more crunch and less like just meat that you're like biting through. And the same thing with pizza, where it's just like less cheese over, like, you know, it's just thinner. So they do very, very thin, wide slices, not those micro pepperonis, which are pretty cool that people use, regular size pepperonis. And like the crust is just excellent. Just the right amount of everything. I don't know. It's the idyllic slice of pizza. I think that's all I can say about it.
Every bite is the best bite.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
That's so good. Oh man, I should have tried it. I mean, we were only in Toronto for like, when we saw you watch the Jays game, left.
Yeah.
Should have spent way more.
You spent a lot of time like leaving the city and doing everything and stuff, which is also kind of cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna make it like a yearly trip to go back there because like
Sick.
both of us have family there.
Yeah.
Just Canada is so goated. Like the nature there, unreal.
Yeah,
I've never
great.
seen anything like it. Just miles and miles.
And we all got to go to the
thousands
West
of
Coast
miles.
together for sure.
Yeah. It's. I started watching it's a BBC program, so I don't know whether it's available globally, but it's called Race Across the World. And they did one just before COVID hit, which was getting from the top of South America to the most southern point. And you've just got you've got a budget. It's like 5 teams of 2 people in each. So like couples, like dads and daughters, dads and sons, mums and daughters, like whoever, friends. And I think you get like maybe £3,000 to get from top to bottom, but you have to hit certain checkpoints to know where the next checkpoint is.
Like Amazing Race.
Exactly, yeah. And they just released one that was across Canada. So you start over in Vancouver Island and you end on St. John's.
Oh, wow, okay.
So but you go up to basically the Arctic.
Oh, shit,
and then
okay,
come back
the Northwest
down.
Territories and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then where did they go where was the stop in Ontario? Loads of people did go to Toronto, but then loads of people, I think it was...
There's Thunder Bay, maybe, is a big one.
Thunder Bay, yes. Thunder Bay was where they started and then had to get to Quebec City. So it was either hitchhike, basically, the whole way there, or go through the cities where it's really fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And obviously, like that was like the midway point, so half their budgets were like...
Ooh, I gotta watch that.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And it really exposed like I've only seen Ontario and the tiniest bit of Quebec. But just like the vastness of Canada, obviously it's the fucking second biggest country in the world, but like the different climates you can go through is amazing.
Yeah. The West Coast is its own world. I'm very jealous of it, but the Rocky Mountains up there and the glaciers and like everything, it's
so cool. Yeah,
it's amazing. I think I told Connor, because he hasn't been to the West Coast, and I said like every Canadian needs to see Lake Louise in their lifetime,
Yeah.
or you should lose your passport.
Yeah, I love it there. I mean, the food in Toronto was also amazing. Like, we went to that.
Fetsoon, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. Didn't have a beaver tail. Didn't do it.
It's okay. It'll be there when you get back.
It doesn't sound like Canadians are that passionate about it.
When you're a kid, I think it's like a really good thing. But when you're older, it's a big dessert. So
Connor was a
very
proprietor of it.
Yeah.
And he has a sweet tooth. So
Yeah,
kind of
that's
makes
true.
sense. Cool. Okay, are you happy with all your selections? We can
lock them in.
lock them in.
Put them in the twist the cap and what's time capsule made of? Metal?
So I used to use
Rhodium?
just fucking Tupperware.
Tupperware, okay.
Really, like...
So it'll last like a good 80 years.
Literally, yeah.
Into the future.
We'd get like takeaway food, and sometimes you'd get like the fancy takeaway food.
I think the worms are already inside the Tupperware.
They're eating the candies. They're all over the Playmobil.
Yeah.
The little fingers are like, why did you do this to
Okay.
me? Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for being part of it.
Yeah, no problem.
It's awesome to, get just a
great
bit more of an
idea.
insight.
I think you're right.
Aside
Like,
from
we
sports.
need to all practice more gratitude. Things move so fast in Counter-Strike. That's why my YouTube videos are all like history videos of like players and stuff like that. We're never looking back.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been fucking awesome.